Can you hear me okay?
Yep, sure can.
Very good. All right, well, thanks for showing up with us today, guys. Really appreciate it. We've got the webinar set for an hour. I really don't see it going that long. I think we can do this fairly quickly. We don't have a very large group here, and so like Ann was saying, we'll open up for some questions here in a bit. Mainly, we just want to go through Form Studio and just show you some major changes. I call them major. They're not architecturally major changes. Most of just some enhancements, and we've moved a couple things around to make it a little bit more, a little bit easy to understand, I believe. So it's going to be a little bit technical. I believe some of you, if not all of you, have been into Form Studio. And the main idea of this is that since some of you have been building forms, we want you to understand what has changed. Also, in this release, we've gone through a big push to take all of our what we call legacy forms on the handheld. So all the PO receiving, the transfers, all the shop floor pop forms, all those forms have been rebuilt in Form Studio. And as we go forward, they'll get enhanced further with, like some of them actually are honoring the WMS option flags. And part of this release is we've also released the new WMS options screen. And so as we go forward, all these forms will just keep getting more and more enhanced to honor those flags. The other big project we've released in Form Studio is all the pallet management forms. So as far as building pallets from receiving all the way through transferring to the warehouse, pop and shop for production to a pallet, pallet put away, pallet let down, loading pallets onto a shipment, and shipping them through pick pack. So we've got a ton of new forms that are coming out in this release, and the beautiful thing about that is as you understand Form Studio, is you can take these out of the box forms and modify them, and you get a really good head start on a lot of the work to building these forms initially. So I have one form in the distribution. So this is WMS version 4 project. And if I open up our projects, version 4, so this is all the distribution forms, shop floor forms, pop forms, and all the pallet management forms.
Michael, we're not seeing your screen.
Oh.
Or at least I'm not.
That would help. Can you see, let me know you can see it.
Yep, we're good now.
Okay. So if I go up here to open project, I just want to point out the 4 projects. So the WMS version 4, shop floor, pop, pallet management. These are the 4 main projects where all the main commercial forms live under. So I'm currently in WMS version 4 up here, and I've got the peer receiving form open. RMA receiving, I'm going to pop this open because this one has not been converted. So what we've done is, as far as bringing these forms into Form Studio, when I say converted, I mean converted from the old architecture of Form Studio to the new architecture of Form Studio with some of these enhancements. So if you look at a couple of things here on the item properties, you have SQL events, then formulas, then action. And so most people have done a lot of SQL events, maybe a formula, and then they might come in. Oftentimes people aren't doing too many actions underneath an item. But if we look at PO receiving, there is no SQL events and formulas. It's all been moved under action. So here's our formula, and here's our SQL event. And there's been something new added called validation transaction. Okay, so this one has a validation transaction. And these are really nice. These are pre-built validation programs that have been added to Form Studio to take a lot of the legwork out. So it used to be that if you wanted to do a SQL event to validate a purchase order number, purchase order numbers are kind of difficult, especially because you have the release numbers. They're 6-digit with the release number. So you do all kinds of like padding and concatenating with numbers into SQL. It's kind of a pain. So now under put away, there's really receipt validate PO. And so that would take an order number, a release number, and it returns some data. Now this is all data driven, so we can change these just by adding some new columns with a SQL script, whatever you want to have returned. And so the other cool thing about these validation transactions, it doesn't just validate, but it also runs through the rules in Macola. So if I run, do a PO validate, so I just ran the PO validation transaction, and if I put in fork, it's going to run the validation against fork, and it's going to tell me that it requires inspection. That message box came directly from the validation transaction. So it's going to go through and do a lot of the work of Macola for you, and it makes building forms much, much faster. So that is pretty much the gist of it. I wanted to show you also palette management, because you guys, I think, are all familiar with a lot of the POP and shop floor, what we have out there. If I go into POP real quick, all the forms you've seen on the handheld are here. So all the POP backfill, POP issue, POP return, put away, POP reporting finished goods. Those are all the forms that have always been on the handheld, have been recreated now in Form Studio. And then if I open up palette management, there's a bunch of forms in here. So palette builder, this allows you to just build a palette. So if I just want to go and take an item stem from bin 100, put 10 of those onto a palette, I've got now palette 7540. Palette 7540 now has one item on there of stem sitting in bin 100. And I can go in here and do a palette transfer, put it with 7540, shows me this, what is on this palette, and I can just move that to bin 200. And so what it does is, if I pull it back up again, we have a whole object library built up for all the palette management stuff. So the package transfer, it takes a palette number, quantity, to bin, location, the to location, and the username. And all it does is it loops through that package and finds out all the items of the bins and lots that are currently on that package. It transfers all that material in Macola, and then it synchronizes the palette layer then to go with that, so it's all in sync. So palette transfer, palette letdown is like a transfer, but it actually also destroys the palette layer, so that you can take something from the overstock bins, bring them down to the picking bins, and delete the palette layer, so that you're going to start repacking palettes from the picking bins. Nice little palette view, so you can see what's on the palette. If you're just out and about, you want to see what's on there. If it was a serialized item, you do a serial lot drill down to show all the lot numbers or serial numbers that are on that palette as well. Then we have palette receiving, so you can build up a palette as you're pulling inventory off the dock. Start building up palettes as you're doing PO receiving. And again, just like palette builder, you're going to actually get a palette number that is a license plate. And then in POP, the same. So like for palette receiving, we also have POP palette production. So you build palettes as you're building production out of POP. Also POP palette issue. So if you want to just take if maybe you receive a bunch of stuff onto a pallet off a truck at PO receiving, and it's in such a way that you can just grab a full pallet and just issue that pallet directly to the POP order. And all those are the same in shop floor as well. I think that's really about it. Under the distribution, there's a bunch of new ones. I don't know if you guys have seen the in-transit receiving and shipping, but we do have the in-transit done, and I think that's about it. The next step that we're going to do then is, these are some of the base forms. Next step, we're going to go through, and we've got a bunch of tables and designs that we've identified for taking most of these forms and making them more of a directed process. So for instance, if I want to go build up a pallet for a shipment out in the warehouse, maybe I want to go and say I'm going to go pick 10 orders, and it'll then go in a directed fashion to say go to this bin, I go to this bin, I go to this bin, and build up a pallet by taking you in a the nice sequence throughout the warehouse, whether that's bin number or bin sequence, and make sure that those bins get allocated such that you get multiple pickers going out at the same time and picking multiple pallets for multiple shipments. And that also include wave picking as well. That's about it. I think. Did I miss anything, Anne?
No, I don't think so. I think we probably ought to see if folks have questions.
Something I'll show real quick too while we're waiting for questions. In Agility Explorer under File Options in this newest release are all these new options. So our user management is now up in here. All of the WMS options are in here now. So all your serial lot builder, enterprise and peer receipt options, all these options now reside under File Options in Agility Explorer. And so those are the option screens that will become more and more honored in Form Studio and these forms as we enhance them further.
Hey, Michael.
Yes.
How many? You only really showed the PO receiving validations. What other validations are in there?
Oh, sure.
Is there one sort of like physical inventory or?
Good question. If I go to action validation, so we've broken them out by different categories. So under IM there is counts. So for validating item, issues, receipts. Under OE we have shipping, unconfirmed shipping. So PO we have put away and receipts. POP, so we have the backfill. We have working on some of the directed picking stuff. Issue, put away, report, return. PS is our picking and picking ship pallet. I think picking and shipping. It's mostly our pallet stuff. So all the load pallet, pack pallet, pallet builder, letdown, transfer, pop production, and then under shop floor we were issue, pallet issue, put away, report, return. So pretty much all those, almost all the forms I've shown you. Probably 90% of what we have out here, there's validations for about all the fields where we're actually going and retrieving data for validation. Any other questions?
Michael,
Yep.
can we assume that everybody knows how to take a form and copy it and start a new form?
Well, I can certainly take the time to do that. I think it's probably a good thing to go over. And that's a very good point. So if you want to take something like PO receiving and you want to make this your own, if you start adding fields and validations and everything to this, then when you update next time it's going to get wiped out because there's a specific ID associated with this form beyond just the name. So if you want to take PO receiving and make it your own, you come up here to edit, copy form, make it my own, and now you can then come in here and start adding new fields, new buttons, and so forth. And then when you save that, that'll be yours. Is there anything about Form Studio that you're unclear about that I could go through and show you some things? Does silence mean everybody is okay with what we've gone through and you feel comfortable?
We don't know. We don't know yet.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Well, I would be happy to just go through and show you a couple things.
Can you do something like the menuing screens and adding forms to screens and things like that?
Sure. So Form Studio is really designed for building forms for the handheld device. And then Design Studio is really more for building process grids and more the desktop type transactions and forms. So if I wanted to come in here now, everything's built on projects. So if I do a new project here called FS example, now that I have this project, I can build stuff in Form Studio. I can go over to Design Studio and open up that same project and build a bunch of process grids and forms and things like that. And then everything gets stuffed into that one project. Once I do that, I can export the project as an XML file and I can deliver it anywhere. I can take it to the customer site and import it onto their site and everything comes into their proper database tables, and then everything is there for you to assign then these processes to users. So on Form Studio we have distribution, pop, and shop floor, and that coincides with on Pocket ES the distribution, pop, shop floor tabs at the top. Okay, I don't have pop on here because I don't have anything assigned to my user as pop. So if I add a new form, form 36, and I can go up here and give it this form a name. Okay, call it my new form. We'll save it. Okay, my new form's right there. So I'm going to add a text lookup, a text field, maybe a text field and a button. Okay, so because it's a handheld form, the fields or the fields just go down vertically. So on here, let's build something kind of quickly here for you. So the name of that field will be text item. We'll give us a caption of item. Give it a description, and maybe we'll put an empty space in here just to make it look nice. And a quantity. And let's make this a binned item. Okay, so go ahead and save that. And I click on item. So if I go to action for item and do a validation transaction, and let's do an issue validate item. Let's just actually do a receipt. So I'll give the item number. The return data, I'll bring the description into the description field. I also want to bring the item number back. And the reason I want to do that is anything where the item number is being validated, we're also including the UPC code, and also if I go back over here to our options under enterprise, you can choose from the item master, you can choose additional item validation fields. So if for whatever reason you've got a bunch of data that you hold in your user-defined field 2 for identifying an item number, it's like an alternative item number. Maybe you switched systems years ago and you always kept the item number in that user-defined field system or field, then we can also validate against that field as well. So by bringing the item back, we ensure that if I didn't scan the item, but I scan the UPC code into that field and it validates and brings the item description back, I want to overwrite the UPC code in that field with the actual item number from the item master. Okay, so if I type in any item, it's going to tell me item number not found. Stem, it's going to bring back my stem.
Can you also, like I know a customer who ran out of available spaces for scrap codes. So in shop floor control activity, could it conceivably write a generic scrap quantity shop floor and then in addition write out to an external SQL table? You know, if I wanted to collect it outside of Macola, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
Is that possible with the product?
Absolutely. And so I'll show you what that looks like. Let's make this one numeric. So on the button call, this will be our save button, and on my action I would do a business transaction. So these are all the business transactions of Macola that we can call, that we've got written into our own objects. So I can do a confirm ship. So there's our create extra tags for creating cycle counting tags. All the PO, so pop create order. We have our PO receipt, pop return, pop report production, shop floor activity transaction, issue return. Here's all the tag counting stuff, transfers, unconfirmed ship. And then also under here is all the package transactions. So the pallet management that I was showing you with license plates is built on a whole framework for package transactions. So we don't care if your package is a drum, carton, pallet, bag, container, whatever it is. It doesn't. We don't care what it is. And if you come in here under options, under pick pack, package type maintenance, I can define all those drums, pallets, cartons. So they have a package type. So once you define your package types, and you can also define the hierarchy of how those package types operate with one another. So cartons go into pallets, maybe pallets go into a container. You can define all those inner structures. And then once you've got that, it's add a package. I can add a package, and then item add to the package. So you start building up packages and putting items onto those packages, putting packages onto shipments, and you start building out however you want to build it. You can do package transfer, so that's how we do the pallet transfer. We do a package transfer, and then so you just give it a package number, how much you're transferring, the to bin, the to location, the username, and then it just does all the work to move that pallet and move all the inventory on that pallet in Macola. In this case, I'm just going to do a very simple inventory issue. No, actually, we're doing receipt. Okay, so here I would give it anywhere we have cost. If you put a -1, you'll just let the object go into Macola and figure out what the cost should be. But you can put a cost in there. Anything 0 or above will allow you to override the cost. So I give the item number, location. We'll use the default location. So the default location. All these fields that start with an @ sign. If I go back over to the handheld under options, that's where all these fields here. So things you can control. So if I define my default location on the handheld as Massachusetts, I can pick that up here and say my handheld is always in that location, so I'm just going to use that where I'm going to always receive my inventory into. Quantity be the quantity field. Username is the user ID of the currently logged in user on the handheld device, which is really important because that is everything goes to the inventory transaction table. That user ID who's logged in will get reported onto that inventory transaction record. So then we have our bin serial lot properties. So we have a bin number, and the quantity will be the same. And then I'll clear the form when I'm done, so I can then do it again. So if I do stem 100, receive 1,000, click save, we just received 1,000. Now, some of the things you can do too then is on the item validation, I'm going to add a new variable called our bin flag, and the return data brings back a serial lot flag and oh wait, this is not the item location. I have to do item location. So the default location here. So return the bin flag. And then once we get the bin flag, then we can do a formula. And if the bin flag is no, then we'll just hide the bin field. We don't want to give it a message. So a couple things we can do here is based on the criteria, or you can just say it's always true. Then we can set certain fields to other data elements. We can also set up function calls, so we can do some mathematical functions and some string concatenations and paddings and trimming. So all kinds of nice string functions here. And we can also hide. So I'm hiding the bin field on the case that it's true. I can also change the caption. I can change the caption of any of the fields on the form. I can make certain fields required based on certain flags of data or any kind of variable I can check and to make certain things required. Or I can choose to just clear the form. If something happens, just clear the form out. So in this case, we're just going to hide the bin field with bin flag is equal to no. And then execution is if I could put a bunch of formulas here and I could check a bunch of things, and if something's true and I want the whole execution just to stop, then I would run the first true formula and it would just bail out and stop. It would not pass all the validations and go on to the next field. In this case, I'll just choose run all because I don't really want it to stop. I'm just one way or the other, it's going to hide the field or it's not going to hide the field. Okay, so if I choose stem, it's going to go to my bin field. And I'm going to add another button real quick here to clear. So stem, I got a bin field, and if I do bolt, my bin field is gone. And this is, so I'm in debug mode, so if I go over here to the right here, I've got my variables, so I can see my bin flag is a no. And these are all the settings from the options screens. These are all the settings that are being brought in that you can also use to control different elements on the form and control the whole flow based on certain variables that come back from the settings table. So then if I go over to Agility Explorer and go to users, to my user, and my new form is right here. Then I can go back over to the handheld, log out, and here's my new form. So on the button call, there are a lot of actions we can do, and so the really neat thing about this is we can stack these up. So if I want to do a receipt and then turn right around, once I got the receipt, turn right around, maybe do a pop issue. So I do a receipt and immediately do a pop issue to a pop order. So obviously I would need to put more fields in that form to collect the order number to issue it to, and however you want that flow to work. But you can stack these as high as you want of multiple transactions. And then you ask a question, can I update other fields or other tables? I could just do a SQL script. So maybe I want to do a receipt and then update a table. So update, and it doesn't matter. It could be if the table is in this database, you can update it. If the table is in another database, you would just need to make sure you prefix the right database name in the SQL script. So it'll be hard coded in the SQL script itself here. But the idea is you can update any data you want in any table inside the McColl database. Does that answer your question you had there?
Yeah.
So all the other options here we have, I should do clear form, with close form, print documents. So anything that is in our document repository. So if I go back over here to Agility Explorer, oops. A file under documents. Oops, that's not been moved yet. It's under System Documents. So here are all the different doc types. So for receiving, we got standard pure receiving, which is LPO doc type. Pure receiving pallets. So if you're receiving pallets at pure receiving time, you can use the PO PLT doc type. So when you choose to print documents in Form Studio, you would go under here, in this case, receiving, and there's our pure receiving label. So click next. It's going to go into our document repository, pull out the first crystal report or nice label it finds, and present you with the parameters that are on that crystal report or nice label, so you can then go in here and define them. So if I had a receiver variable that came back from my pure receipt object call, then I would pass it in here to this print document so it can print my label for receiving. And I'll show you, actually it might be clear if I go over to the pure receiving form itself and give you a... So under this one, I do pure receipt, print my document, and then I also have a formula that checks the flag on the option screens whether or not I want to display the PO receiver after my PO receipt. So if that's equal to true, then I have a message type of information that says receiver is, and then just whatever the variable that I've got stored the receiver number in will show up on my message box.
How do you handle, like, if you're selling in a grocery store, they've got that barcode that when scanned, it displays like it's a universal barcode, like your vendor number, the universal product number, and all that
The
stuff.
UPC code?
Yeah, typically people don't store that great big long number as the item number internally. So there's a field in Macola that would contain it. Is it possible to scan either the internal part number as a barcode or that UPC code and have it processed? Does it know what it's reading?
Yes. Yes. So if I do, if I go to receipts here, and let me pull up Macola.
Because I know printing the barcode labels and sticking them on boxes is half the battle to using the products. We've got to print them all out, and it's good to do it at receipt time.
Right, so let's say my UPC code is Mike123.
Mm-hmm.
So obviously if I do stem, I'm going to get stem. If I do Mike123, I'm going to get stem.
Oh, wow, that's pretty good.
So those are the validation objects that are built into it.
Excellent. Good.
Good questions. Are there any more questions? I got 25 more minutes that I'm willing to spend time to show you whatever you want to see. I can build a whole form through. Whatever you want to see here, I'm willing to do for you guys.
So this runs as a terminal server session?
Yes, it does. Yeah, when you launch the handheld device, it'll show up. There's an icon on the desktop of the actual handheld device once you get it all set up, and there's also a configuration on the handheld device where you define the terminal server information, and then when you double click or double tap the icon on the desktop, you'll see this quick little login that happens where you immediately it just remotes into the terminal server and immediately launches Pocket ES. So it acts kind of like a published app, like a Citrix published app. And when you run it that way, it's not like a full terminal server session. It runs just a small enough footprint just to run Pocket ES. And then when you close Pocket ES, because it was run just for Pocket ES, the whole session just closes down and you're back to the desktop of the handheld device.
So is this actually a Windows product on the handheld?
On the handheld, there's a Windows CE product that has a very tiny footprint, and all it really does is it just launches terminal server with the right credentials, and it tells terminal server to launch Pocket ES.
Okay.
So, being new to some of this, or any of you guys, are there any, if you're feeling comfortable with Form Studio and this is all making sense to you, are there any things you want to see that you feel like would be very beneficial from a webinar standpoint, or even just doing one-on-one with you guys to help you understand some more? Is there anything you want to learn more about? like palette management. Does palette management and all the pick pack stuff, is that of interest at all to you guys?
Yes, palette management would be good, and even off of a button how to create a barcode labeled print that could potentially be a concatenation of something that was scanned. So it'd be taking variables that you pulled, and if I got too complicated, just stop me.
So you want to scan maybe 2 or 3 pieces of data, concatenate them, and print it out?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so really what I would do for that is so you would have, maybe just 3 fields in a button, and really all you would do is you could either validate them with a SQL event if it's data you want to validate, or just scan whatever, and on the button call you would do
Well, and I would want to validate them.
Yeah.
I'd want to validate, that the item number was a valid item number, that the vendor was a valid vendor,
Okay.
etc.
Right. Okay. So you could also, for this is the item number, you could just do a validation transaction for the item. I don't think we have one for the vendor, so you could just do a simple SQL event. So the SQL event,
Yeah, where equal.
you can just go to the vendor file and just validate that. And then once you get to the button call, you would just do a print document. And probably what you would do is there's a user-defined 1 through 5. So you probably just pick one of those and create a very simple crystal report or a nice label that just took those three parameters, each one of those fields as a parameter, just pass it into crystal, and then just do a simple concatenation into one field and barcode it. We provide barcode fonts, code 128 barcode fonts as part of our implementation that you can just use in crystal reports. And nice label has barcode automatically as part of it. It's kind of like Bartender.
Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
And then if I wanted to take that barcode, the number that was created, I could then on the button write that back into a UDF and say in the I am receiving table or something like that.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah. So just do a SQL script.
No, just write update. Or I may even want to write create a view or a completely independent table just
Store
to track
procedure.
all those.
Yeah, you do a store procedure and call the store procedure. So I would say update it, set extra 1 equal to this field, where item number is equal to this field. However you want to do it. And then when you,
Gotcha.
these are just placeholders, so at runtime it'll just replace that with the value that's in those variables, the field or the variables. So under data, you can create multiple variables. So I can create strings, numerics, and you can also create, if you want to create a field for order number, that would be like a sales order number or a shop order number. I don't think we have PO order number, but shop orders is different because you can have alphanumeric or numeric. But order number works for, I think, POP and for sales orders, and that just, whatever data comes into that, it'll automatically format it based on whether you're progression or ES. So if you're ES and you give it a number, it'll automatically pad it with 8 characters. To the pad it to the right. So you can do variables. With variables, then you can, if I create a variable here, then when I leave my field here, whether I do a validation or whether I do a SQL event, my return data can come back to fields, and I can also put it into that variable called test. Okay, and then once I have that variable, I can turn right around and do a formula against that variable and validate what came into that variable. So if test equals something, whatever it is, then again I can start setting data fields to other things, hide fields, change caption, make fields required, or if that's equal to it, I can also reverse my logic and say I wanted to provide them with a hard or soft kind of message box or just some information, You know, to provide like the PO item requires inspection message box I showed you. So maybe we'll just give them something informational, or you can stop them hard. Say, you know, unit measure is not within what you know, acceptable in here or something. Whatever you want to do. What was the other one you wanted to? You wanted to print the barcode.
Well, yeah, I'd want to take that information, concatenate it into one place, and then print it out on a label.
Yeah, and then update some data.
And that'd be on the button.
Right. Was that clear?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, and I probably want to tie this into the whole PO receiving process, so that when I receive the PO, I'd add a button that would actually automatically print out that label.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a pallet level label, or typically for unitized pallet. So yeah, I get it.
And what's great about this is you can see how rapidly you can build this stuff. There's lots of examples you can start from the core forms and modify them, or start from the beginning and use those core forms as some examples. And the service dollars we found are great with the forms. You know, there's just so much value you can add here for the customers, because you actually take, you know, instead of saying here's the product, change your processes to meet this, it's what processes are working for you, and let's change the product then to meet your processes. And there's just massive amounts of value in that. Are there any other concepts you can think of that your customers might like to see, that I could show you how we could make that work?
Since this runs as a terminal session, is it possible to run a terminal session on something like an iPad?
Run a terminal session on what?
Like an iPad, and do the same forms?
We have had people do that. Typically, though, we don't use these forms. Typically, we do something in Design Studio and build a form in Design Studio for that, because Design Studio has some capability of taking fields on a form and making them really big, so they're more accessible to your finger. So we have probably less than a handful. We have a couple of customers who are doing iPads and Samsung tablets and things where they're running around doing processes on iPads. We have a customer taking orders in the field with an iPad.
Yeah. Can you display images from the databases?
No. No, you could print a label, crystal report with an image.
Okay.
Do you know of anybody that has is scanning to iPads?
Not to iPads. I know one of our customers is using more of like a Samsung tablet. It actually has a USB port. They just plugged in a wedge scanner to it. We do have, last year at WiSys Day, I built a very simple form in Design Studio and it showed on the iPad. And we worked with one of our hardware vendors and got a Bluetooth, like a wedge scanner.
Mm-hmm.
And I was able to scan like a wedge scanner to the iPad. So it is doable. It's just you just have to put a little bit more elbow grease into it to make it work.
Hey, Michael.
Mm-hmm.
I got an email today from the R&D department. Fabricio is playing with HID compatible Bluetooth scanner with ZenX Mobile and a smartphone tablet right now. Trying to put together scanning on tablets and mobile phones. So I'm just telling you, it's what's John call it, a science experiment or something.
Mm-hmm.
But he is looking at things like that right now.
Yeah, that, and we are experimenting with taking a lot of the agility process grids and components, and seeing how they play and then on a website as well. So we're looking at what would agility look like if it was browser based. Any other questions? You guys have had some good ones.
That's good.
All right. Anything else you want to add, Ann?
No, I don't. Well, just that if they have questions, comments that they think of afterwards, they need to contact me or contact you, and I can put them in touch with whoever can answer them. So, if we have customers that are going to start using the new forms, especially the version 4, did we talk about version 4 versus form 1? I guess we did at the beginning, didn't we? Okay.
And
So
I also many times in the past, and I'm happy to do it, is just to do just even a 1 hour one-on-one with you guys. If you feel more comfortable bringing just your team in, where you can ask some questions one-on-one and come up with several examples where we can show you how we can build those things. Or we can build it on your computer if you want. We just do a go-to-meeting and get on your computer, and we can show you how to build some stuff out so you have stuff to leave with you. I'm happy to do that as well. All right. Well, if there are no more questions, I really appreciate you guys' time today. And like Ann said, we're here. You know how to get a hold of us. So let us know if you come up with any other questions afterwards, and let us know if you want to take this further.
Yep.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Have a great day.
Bye-bye.
Bye.